when you have strong conviction, ideas, and you speak about it with passion and conviction, and all the time, and you're doing that because you think that it's a real thing and the only thing to do for a better country and a better society. In politics, the most important is credibility. And by doing that, and we did that at the PPC for the last 6 years, you are getting credibility.
Welcome back to Collapse Life. I'm Zahra Sethna, and I'm happy to be the host of this Thinking Person's Guide to Civilization and Demise. 2025 is only just getting started, and it's already shaping up to be a year of big political changes. Donald Trump is moving back into the White House. Keir Starmer may soon be moving out of 10 Downing Street. And we now know that after 9 long years, Justin Trudeau will no longer be Prime Minister of Canada. So here to talk about what that means for Canada and for the rest of the world is friend of Collapse Life, Maxime Bernier, leader of the People's Party of Canada. Welcome back, Max. It's so nice to see you again.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be with you today. And, I always enjoy our discussion.
Thank you so much. And yeah, you're kind of taking off. And so we wanted to start by congratulating you. You've had some pretty high profile media coups recently. Like just a couple of days ago, the comedian Rob Schneider retweeted a video about the PPC, which was amazing. And we know that you were recently a guest on our fellow Canadian and now US-based Daniela Cambone's show. And then I think probably one of the bigger breakthroughs was that you had an interview with Natalie Morris on Redacted, a YouTube channel that has 2.5 million subscribers. So we are hoping with any luck, this will translate to some traction for you in the party. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy for that. And as you know, it's very difficult for the People's Party and for me to be in the mainstream media in Canada. They are ignoring us like they did with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. during the last electoral campaign. And I was looking at Robert F., what he was doing, and he did a lot of podcasts, YouTubers, and he was present on social media. And that was a great strategy. So that's my only strategy. So when I have the opportunity to be with big podcaster or YouTubers, that's great. But also I'm doing the small one. When I'm speaking with you, I will reach more people, Canadians also, Americans. And that's going well. And that's a good momentum also because, as you just said, we will be in a federal election in Canada this year in 2025. It may be in spring or October. But that's a blitz for us to be out there on the ground, meeting our people and doing a lot of interviews like that.
Yeah, it's a great start. We're really happy to see you coming out of the gate, and I think a really smart strategy. So we're grateful that you're spending some time here on Collapse Life, but we wish you well on the bigger podcasts as well. So, okay, the world now knows Trudeau has announced he's stepping down, but the damage that he and the Liberal Party have done to Canada, just in terms of the economy, the society, national morale, not to mention Canada standing on the international stage, has been tremendous. And it could put years, if not decades, to put things back on track. So let's start with, what do you think is sort of the best case scenario for what happens next?
Yeah, the best case scenario will be for us as a political party at the federal level to do good at the next election. We had 5% of the vote as a new populist party. If we can double that to 10 or 15% and having our first candidates elected, 1, 2, or 3, that would be a big change in our country. It's a little bit more difficult than in some European countries because, we have an electoral system that is first past the post. I look at what happened in UK with Nigel Farage and his new political party, Reform. It took him 7 times to be able to be elected in the parliament. With 14% of the vote at the last election. So yes, you're right by saying to repair everything that Trudeau did, it will take years to do that. But at least if you look at the polls in our country, we will have a new government that will be the Conservative. There's way ahead in the polls. But our people understand that it's one thing to get rid of Trudeau and the Liberals, but we need to promote the right ideas. And the Conservatives I believe will be a good government of a good manager of a big fat government that will interfere in provincial jurisdictions. They're globalists also, like Trudeau. So we need to be there to push them and to promote the bold changes and bold policies that we need in our country.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, in the past, the PPC has sort of struggled to gain a seat in Parliament, and your message has struggled a little bit to get through to a lot of Canadian voters. So now we're in a different moment than you have been in the past. What is your strategy to kind of win over those Canadians who may agree with your policies, but may still have that fear of voting for a smaller party or feeling like I'm not going to waste my vote, which is such a silly way to think about it, but a lot of people do think that way.
Yeah, or they're saying, I don't want to split the vote. I want the Liberals to be out. We don't want that government anymore. So what I'm telling them right now, it's a good news for them. Look at the polls. Poilievre will win. So now you can afford to vote for your ideas, to vote for us. We will keep Poilievre honest. We will push him in the right direction. Poilievre is a globalist, is for mass immigration. He won't do anything there. And that's destroying our country. He's not speaking about balancing the budget in 1 year. He's pro-war in Ukraine. We are pro-peace. He's pro-Paris Accord. We will withdraw from the Paris Accord. So you can vote for your ideas. You can vote for us. We will be more influential. And that's a way to win the battle of ideas. But, the fact that if in Canada, immigration is the main issue for the next election, the ballot question, that will help us because we are the only national political party in this country that is having a strong position on immigration. We want to end mass immigration. We're the only one the only party who is speaking about that. But also we want to start mass deportation. We want to have a moratorium on immigration. And now if you look at the polls in Canada, more than 58% of the population, including immigrants in Canada, are saying, yes, we need to end mass immigration.
Right.
But Poilievre is not speaking about that. So the next election, if the biggest question is immigration, that will help us to have more support.
Yeah. You have been one of the only politicians who has been very consistently talking about the dangers of mass immigration. And in the beginning, as you started speaking out on that, you were very roundly denounced and called racist and xenophobic for saying that you think mass immigration is a problem. And I think some people are still coming around to that, even though, as you said, the polls have shown a huge shift from sort of maybe a quarter of the population agreeing with you in years past to more than half now. But there are still going to be some people who hear those words and they hear you say, we want to end mass immigration, we want to start mass deportation. They're not going to understand the nuance of it. And they're going to think that you just hate immigrants. So let's talk about the nuances. Let's break it down a little bit. Tell me what you really mean by that.
Yeah, when I'm speaking about that and saying that, immigrants in Canada are with us on that. And why? Because when they decided to come here in Canada, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was very hard for them to be a Canadian. They needed to speak English or French because that was a very important condition. If we want them to be part of our society, to integrate into our society, if you speak the language, that's easier for them. And we did an interview with them and a screening. And when they came here for the freedom that Canada was offering them, the opportunities. And so now they're looking at what is happening with mass immigration. It's an open borders. You don't need to speak English and French anymore. And also add to that the multiculturalism in our country. We are telling them you can come to our country, you can keep your culture, don't integrate into our society. and the federal government will give you subsidies to celebrate, for example, the Chinese New Year. I don't have anything against the Chinese New Year, but if they want to celebrate that, the federal government must not be there to give them funding. The federal government must be there to promote our culture, our history, our society. So what I want, now we have these immigrants that are coming here and they cannot work. So they don't have work, and the federal government is paying for them. They're living in a hotel. They're not able, and they don't speak English or French. So it's very difficult for them. I don't want that. And if we want to help them, we need to be able to have that moratorium first, fixing our country, and after that, we must do what we did in the past in this country. Yes, opening our borders for immigrants who will share our values. And I'm saying, all culture are not equal. If you have people coming here for the third world, your country will become a third world country. And more Canadians understand that because they can see what is happening in UK, what is happening in France. There's no-go zone over there. So it's not anti-immigrants. It's to be sure that the next immigrant that we will have will be happy and prosperous in our country. Now that's not the case. They're living in tents in Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. We don't want that. So and if you're a national politician, your main role must be to work with your population. And that's, it's immoral if you're not trying to help your own population. When you encourage migration, you are working for people from other countries, and it's destroying our country. So let's have a moratorium. Let's have a real discussion about immigration, and more people are ready for that now. In 2019, they were not ready, and you're right. Some journalist in English Canada was still saying that I was a racist for that. But no, it's a question of the country being more successful and keeping our culture alive. I'm coming from Quebec. In Quebec, it's the only province with the French majority. We are speaking French over there. And immigration, it's always a subject in every provincial election because Quebec wants to protect their language and their identity. So some political party at the provincial level will say a maximum of 10,000 immigrants, other will say 20,000, and we have a real discussion about immigration at the provincial level to preserve the identity of Quebec and the French language. But in English Canada in 2019, they were not used to that. And now they understand, we cannot recognize our country, actually, what is happening with mass immigration.
Yeah. One of the impacts of mass immigration is to create a housing crisis in Canada that is among the worst in the world. And so beyond curbing mass immigration, what other measures would you take to address that housing crisis?
Yeah, my opponent, Pierre Poilievre, said that the only way to be sure that, housing prices will go down and housing will be more affordable, he said, we need to build more houses. But it will be impossible to do that. We need to build about, 700,000 houses a year. And we did last year build about 250,000 houses. So it would be impossible, and that's not under the jurisdiction of the federal government. Right. And Poilievre said he will interfere in provincial jurisdictions and try to impose his view to different cities across the country to change their bylaws and allowing more, big towers and more the construction of more houses. But the solution is very simple. You need to control the demand. You have more people that are coming here and they need a roof. So if you stop that mass immigration, that is the only solution and the real solution of mass immigration. But it's not only houses is also the affordability of finding a rent in Montreal or in Toronto or in Vancouver. It's very, very non-affordable. And so we need to fix immigration. That is the demand size. There's supply and demand, and we need to stop the demand, and that will solve the problem. But also, the impact is not only economic, the impact is social. They are not integrating into our society. They are going and live in ghettos. We need to end that.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier that you would pull Canada out of things like the Paris Agreement and probably numerous other international agreements and trade pacts. So, talk a little bit about that. Canada has always been very well known for its global cooperation. You obviously talk a lot about national sovereignty. Where do you draw the line between those two ideas?
Yeah, actually, a proposal that we have in our program, sorry, it's to end foreign aid, no more foreign aid. There's about $10 billion there. But we understand that if there's, an environmental disaster or something like that, that Canada will be there to help. But it's not our role to build roads in Africa or giving money for a development bank in China. So we need to end that, and I'm okay with international aid that will be directly to people when there's a disaster somewhere. But let's do that and bring that money home to help Canadians first. And same thing, with the migration compact. Yes, Canada is part of the UN, but we don't need to finance and give subsidies to the UN for every of their pet project, like the migration compact. For the UN, migration is normal. You're a citizen of Zimbabwe and you must have the right to be a citizen of Canada. No, migration is not normal. We must not sign that compact. We will withdraw from that compact. Same thing, like I said, with the Paris Accord, like Trump did at his first mandate. He said no to the Paris Accord. We are a sovereign country. So all these international, and same thing with the World Health Organization. We have experts here in Canada. So let's do what is good for our population, but we won't participate in these globalist projects that they want to impose to us. So that's a big difference with us and the conservative. So that's why our position with the UN is to withdraw from all these treaties that are not in line with our values. And I can tell you that we will save a lot of money. We will give money to the UN when it's in line with our values as a country. When it won't, we won't. And now that's not the case. The federal government in Ottawa is in line with everything that the UN is doing. But for me, the UN is a dysfunctional organization, a socialist organization, and mostly a globalist organization. And their goal is to be, to have a world government. It won't happen tomorrow. It won't happen in 10 years or in 20 years. But look, in Europe, they had a supranational government with that as soon as possible. And that's the proposal of the People's Party.
Let's talk about Donald Trump for a minute. What impact do you think his recent victory will have, not just on US-Canada relations, but on how Canadians view themselves vis-a-vis the United States? I mean, some of the proposals that have come up have kind of set social media on fire, 51st state, that kind of thing. Are Canadians so disenchanted now that they're actually considering these kinds of suggestions? What's the reaction, and what do you think will happen with Trump coming in?
Yeah, good for us in Canada. There's good news, and there are some challenges. The good news is, as you know, we have a lot of censorship on social media, starting at the federal level with the legislation that Trudeau did pass in Parliament. Maybe the new government will undo all that, but all that also is coming from the big tech, and that's only the US government who is regulating them. And I'm very pleased that after the Trump election, now you have Facebook and other big tech corporations who are saying, okay, we will stop our censorship on social media. That's a good news for Canadians because, I'm on X today with you. On Twitter, I've been censored there. So that will help us. And, you need to have more free speech to have a real democracy and real debate. So that's a good news. The war in Ukraine Ukraine, the fact that Trump said he will end that and is for peace in Ukraine, and I believe him. So the federal government spent $15 billion to and gave that to Ukraine, a corrupt democracy. So that will end. And I know that Polyev is pro-war, but when you'll have a peace that will be negotiated between Trump and Putin, that will be good for us. All the radical gender ideology, here in Canada, the federal government did promote that and give funding to different organizations across the country to promote that ideology in schools and promote the transition and, telling people that, there's more than two sexes. Trump is against that. And the fact that he will do something there and speak about that, that idea will be in our mainstream media because I'm the only politician in Canada who is talking about that, but I'm censored in the mainstream media. They are canceling me, but at least they will have to speak about what Trump is doing in the US, and that will promote common sense in our country. So there's a lot of good things with the Trump election, but what I don't like is the joke about the 51st state. In the beginning, I thought it was a bad joke, but now, Trump is speaking a little bit more and more, and he's speaking about annexion. But I'm there to, like Trump in the US, to put my country first and to work for Canadians first. So we need to defend our sovereignty. And, if you look at the relationship between us and the US, for the last 200 years, we were the best neighbors, allies, and we had the best agreement between us and the US, so we cannot throw out in the garbage. We need to build on that. And I understand that Trump is fed up with what is happening, and our policy in Canada are a threat to the national security of you in the US because of our mass immigration. There's about, I believe, the last 4 years, 400 terror suspects were arrested in the US, and 81 or something like that of them, more than 80% of them were coming from Canada. So that's a threat to your national security and our national security also. We need to do more. And Trump now is a good negotiator, and he's using that because he knows that Canada, with the Trudeau and the Liberal government, we are not strong enough, and he's using that. But we need to be strong. We need to speak with him and telling him that there's good thing with us, with our relationship. And yes, we will solve our problem at the border. And yes, we will stop mass immigration. And yes, we will reinvest in our own defense. I strongly believe that's the most important for Trump. We just need to deliver on that. That would be good for the US, and that would be good for us, and would be able to have a good economic deal with the American.
Yeah. And what's your take on Pierre Poilievre's coming relationship with Trump? Do you think that he is thinking along the lines of what you just said, or is there going to be some tension or pushback with Trump?
Yeah. The problem is I don't know, because Poilievre is a good politician, but he's speaking with anti-slogan. So he didn't say anything on that. I hope that he will be more precise about the border and on mass immigration. He is not for ending, mass immigration. Actually, he's pandering to the immigrants. I call him pandering Pierre. He's pandering to every ethnic communities every weekend with a new costume. I won't do that. Immigrants can bring a flavor of their country of origin, but they must integrate into our society. I'm not doing politics in a temple, in a mosque, or I'm doing politics. Religions and politics must be apart, and that's what I'm doing. But Poilievre is pandering to them, and so that's why he doesn't speak against mass immigration. But that's a huge problem for us, and also for you in the US. I'm waiting to see what will be his position on that.
It's a little bit of a worry that there's going to be a little bit more of the same. But having said that, one of the things that we have talked about on your past visits to Collapse Life is this kind of crazy woke mind virus. And since the past couple of years, we've started to see a lot of the biggest governments that were supporting that ideology starting to fall one after the other, from New Zealand to the Netherlands, now to Canada, possibly soon the UK. But the concern is that it's just going to kind of go into the background, rebrand itself, and then come back in a different form. Do you think that in Canada, people are starting to wake up and come out of that fog? Or do you think they're just looking for someone to kind of put a comforting, warm blanket over them and it'll be okay?
Yeah, I think that Canadians are coming along and they understand that, these woke ideology and gender radical ideology, it's nonsense. More and more people. And, I spoke about that. I started to spoke about that just maybe 6 years ago, but it's more easy right now. And but Polyev is afraid to speak about that. He's afraid because he's afraid of the mainstream media. If you are, speaking against the trans ideology, you're against trans, and no, you can do what you want with your body at 18 years old, but I'm against mutilation of children, and I think that a child is never born in a wrong body. So, but Polyev won't go there. So that's why, like I told you in the beginning, Canadians need us to push Polyev in the right direction. And if we have maybe 10-15% of the vote, Polyev may have more courage to undo all these bad policies.
Yeah. Yeah. We have started to see certain pushback in some countries against this. And certainly there's been a whole kind of slew of populist movements popping up across Europe. What lessons can you take from that experience? You've already mentioned Nigel Farage and his Reform Party. There are other movements happening in Europe. What lessons can you and the PPC take that you think are applicable to Canada?
Yeah, the main lesson is, when you have strong conviction, ideas, and you speak about it with passion and conviction, and all the time, and you're doing that because you think that it's a real thing and the only thing to do for a better country and a better society. In politics, the most important is credibility. And by doing that, and we did that at the PPC for the last 6 years, you are getting credibility. So like these populist parties in Europe, they're coming because the population understand now. So for us, it's a good news. The only big challenge, because of our political system, it may take more time to have people elected from our party in parliament. We have the first past the post. We don't have any proportionality in our electoral system. But that being said, when I'm looking in Europe, in Germany right now, in UK with Nigel, in France with Marine Le Pen, they are speaking a little bit like us, not on all issues, but on immigration, the woke ideology. So I can see that we are winning the battle of ideas. We are winning the argument, and that's why they are censoring us, because they know that's the common sense, and it's very difficult to argue with us on the gender, for example, or the woke issues. And look at the free market also. When you look at the big corporation now that they are closing their DEI department, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so they know that go woke, go broke. So now the economy is speaking, and Canadians and consumers are speaking. So that's the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I hope so. Let's talk a little bit about the Liberal Party and what you think might happen next. I mean, this is kind of a cycle for those who don't know Canadian politics very well. There's been a cycle where the Liberals eat their own tail, so to speak. The party has rushed to replace the leader and then suffer defeat. The Conservatives take over. It takes years for the Liberals to rebuild the party. Are we going to see the same pattern play out again now, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Like you said about the conservative, just go back in time. Brian Mulroney was a conservative prime minister in Canada, was elected with the biggest majority in the history of our country in 1988. In 1993, he was not popular. After 9 years in power, he was not popular, so he resigned. They had a new leader, Kim Campbell, the first lady leader of a national political party in Canada. She was a prime minister for 2 months. We had election after that, and she was not able to win her seat, and the conservative was able to elect only two candidates. They had from the biggest majority in the history, and after that, only two candidates elected, and you had a huge liberal majority. So what is happening right now, after 9 years, people are fed up with Trudeau. He destroyed the economy, actually. It's all about the economy and immigration. Standard of living is going down. Our purchasing power is going down. And people see that with immigration, we are transforming the culture of the country. So Trudeau is not popular, but the Liberals are not popular also. They will have a new leader. Actually, today, there's a caucus in Ottawa with the Liberal MPs, and they have discussion about the leadership contest and the rules for the leadership contest. We will know that this week, but I believe that it will be a very short leadership contest, and they may have a new leader in the next 3 months. The new leader will try to table a budget. I don't know if the budget will pass. That's a confidence vote. We may have an election this spring. If the leader is able to have the support of a small party like the NDP, he will be able to survive the vote of the budget. But anyway, the election will be the latest in the third week of October 2025, October this year. The new leader won't be able to change the mentality of Canadians, and Canadians are upset. They are voting against the Liberals. They are not voting for Poilievre. They're voting against the Liberals, and Poilievre will be the next prime minister, and he will be a good manager of a big fat government. And so that's why the People's Party is growing, and we will be more influential after the next election.
Yeah, I certainly hope so. We're coming to a close. Just a couple last questions for you. We spoke about Trudeau, and some of his critics cite divisiveness as the hallmark of his leadership. It's doubtful that the Conservatives will really be able to overcome this, although there is some low-hanging fruit, but it feels like your message is more likely to bring people together than what we're hearing out of the Conservatives at this point. How would you suggest the next incoming prime minister works to bridge the divide that exists between Canadians provincially, regionally, nationally?
Yeah, first, we have in our constitution, we have the equalization formula. That's a formula that, the rich provinces are giving money to poor provinces, but that formula is unfair. My own province in Quebec is supposed to be a poor province, but no, we are a rich province, and people out west are fed up with that. They want to change that. They want to change the equalization formula to be less generous. Poilievre won't speak about that, and that's important. That's why you have Western alienation. People are fed up with Ottawa and Eastern Canada, because provinces in Eastern Canada are receiving money from provinces from Western Canada, and it's unfair. That formula is unfair, but Poilievre is not speaking about that, doesn't want to do anything. But also at the same time, he is playing, the game of pandering to every ethnicity. So that's not helping. You need to stop to promote diversity. Diversity is not our strength, is what unites us. And what unites us is our culture, our identity. In Ottawa, you have programs, subsidies for Black entrepreneurs. That's racist. If you're not a Black entrepreneur, you won't be able to have a subsidies from the federal government. Sorry, we need to end that. We need to have, a policy that will look at people with not because of the color of their face, but because of their competence. So there's a lot of reform that we need to do in Canada. I don't know. I don't think that Poilievre will have the courage to do all these reform. And so that's why people, after 4 years of Poilievre, they may look at us and say, okay, the real alternative now for bold changes in line with our ideas, with our values, is the People's Party of Canada. We are there for the long term, and this election would be an important one for us, growing our percentage of the vote, maybe having our first candidate elected, and being in Parliament and fighting for what we believe.
Yeah. Yeah. I really hope not just in Canada, but all around the world, people start to recognize that just flipping back and forth between one party to the next is not serving us. It's not getting us where we need to get. And I don't understand why it's taking so long for people to understand that there has to be a viable alternative. And I applaud you for just sticking to your guns and being so consistent in your message and your platform for so many years. And I do hope that it's breaking through. Last kind of final thoughts. One question: do you have any predictions on who might take over as the leader of the Liberals?
There's two potential candidates: the former finance minister, Miss Freeland, or Mark Carney. I call him the globalist in chief. You know, he was working for the UN and the Bank of England and the Bank of Canada. Printing money out of thin air, for him, it's okay. So that maybe we'll have another candidate that will come, but I think that it will be between Freeland and Mark Carney. But both of them will have the same globalist policies, like the Conservative. I call them the LibCon party. The Conservative are only conservative in name, and they are the Liberals in the main important issues. So they are like them, and so we need to fight for what we believe, and we are doing that. So we'll see what will happen. But the new leader of the Liberal Party of Canada won't be able to save the Liberals, and Poilievre won't be able to resolve all the challenges that we have, because you need courage. You need to be able to do what needs to be done. And I'm very disappointed on his position on immigration and balancing the budget and taxation. So we'll see.
Where do you think is your best hope for a breakthrough for the PPC?
But I hope it will be in my own writing. I will be a candidate in Quebec, in my own province, but also in Alberta. As you may know, we had 5% on average all across the country, but in the province of Alberta, we had 10% on average. So Alberta, it's a great province. We may have one or two, some candidates in Alberta that may be able to be elected. We'll see. But contrary to the Green Party of Canada, our vote, for them, their vote is concentrated on the island in Vancouver. And that's why they're able to have two candidates elected. For us, it's a good thing. Our vote is not concentrated. It's all across the country. We have supported all across the country, but we don't have a strong hold where we have a lot of support, except in Alberta, in the province of Alberta. So we may have our first candidate elected coming from Alberta.
Great. Fingers crossed. Any final thoughts? Is there anything that viewers of this video can do to help support you if they agree with what you're saying?
Yeah, they can actually. If you are a YouTuber or a podcast, and you have audience from Canada and you want me, just be in touch with us at info@peoplespartyofcanada.ca. My goal is to be on social media, to be active, and to try to reach more people. So, and if you want to know more about our party, don't hesitate to go on our website, peoplespartyofcanada.ca. If you like what I'm saying on social media, you can like it, retweet it. The big challenge that we have is being able to be more visible, and the censorship, and it's very, very difficult here in Canada for a new political party. Add to that the fact that the mainstream media is canceling us. So my campaign will be on social media and on the ground. And if you want to help, be in touch with us and write to us. And that will be my pleasure to do an interview with you and being able to reach to your audience.
Fantastic. Well, I hope everybody does do that. I hope they reach out to you, they start following you on social media, and we just wish you the best of luck, Max. We would love to have you back in let's say a couple months, and we'll check in and see how things are going up in Canada.
Yeah, thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I'll be with you. Let me know after when we'll have a new leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. Maybe we can have a discussion. But
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you for giving me that opportunity to be with you and your audience.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Folks, 2025 is going to be a wild ride, so buckle up. We're so glad to have all of you on this journey with us, and we thank you for being here. If you aren't yet subscribed to this channel, we ask that you please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all our latest news. You can also find out more from us at collapselife.com and join the conversation on our X channel at collapse_life. We hope to see you back here next week when we'll have another amazing guest. And until then, just keep your chin up. It's only collapse. See you soon.